and I'm a master level employee at Pillars of Wellness. And today you are joining our series on coping with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. In this video, we will be talking about communication. We'll be focusing on different communication styles, communication skills, and conflict resolution skills. All right, so there are 3 styles of communication. The first one is passive. Individuals who have passive communication styles avoid expressing opinions and feelings and identify meeting their own needs. In terms of their body language, they tend to have a quiet tone with eyes pointing downward, and they may appear fidgety. Their language style is apologetic, submissive, and they are vague, not really being clear on what their needs and wants are. The consequences of this communication style is they often feel taken advantage of, feel unheard, or rarely have their own needs met. We also have aggressive communicators. Aggressive communicators express their feelings and opinions and advocate for their needs, but in a way that violates the rights of others. So they may try to dominate others, use humiliation to try to control people, criticize, blame, or attack, be very impulsive, have a low frustration tolerance, and use you statements. Now, you statements would be things such as, "You made me feel this way," "You caused this to happen," or "You never listen." Their body language is loud or angry tone, staring and overly direct eye contact, and they may have clenched fist. Their language style is insulting, sarcastic, and disrespectful. The consequences of this type of communication style is it creates disconnected relationships and can result in frequent arguments. The last communication style is assertive. These individuals clearly state their opinions and feelings and firmly advocate for their rights and needs without violating the rights of other people. So you can see on the right here, we have a Venn diagram. So if we have your needs and those are the only ones that are being met, that would be an aggressive communication style. If passive is when others' needs are met only and your needs are not considered. And then assertive is that nice sweet spot where we have their needs being considered and your needs being considered. Their body language is firm but respectful. They have a relaxed appearance, appropriate eye contact and gestures. They're confident, polite, respectful. And the consequences are there's positive relationships and more fairness in meeting the needs of self and others. So this is the type of communication style that we aim to have. Some tips for assertive communication is to have eye contact that is not overly staring someone down, but not looking at your feet either. Somewhere in the middle where you can direct your eye contact towards their eyes, but you can look around their face as well. And then posture would be sitting up straight or standing up straight. The language style is using words that start with I, such as I would like or I feel. They avoid ambiguity, no swearing, no criticism, or no mocking, and control the tone of your voice. Not having a voice that's too quiet or too loud, somewhere in between. So what are I statements? I statements are when you start off with saying, I feel blank, when you blank, because. So you would say like, I feel worried, entering that emotion word there, when you come home late, because I don't know if you're okay. And that sounds very different from, you can't just come home late without telling me. I statements serve several purposes. They're interpreted as less accusatory. They emphasize why the issue is important, allows the other person to see your perspective and empathize, and allows you to speak clearly and assertively. I statements give you a chance to listen to what you are saying and reflect on what to say next or in the future. So if we had two different statements that start with you never call me back, do you even want to talk to me? And you are so rude when we talk about finances. Think about a way that you could put that into an I statement. And there's many different ways that you can do this, but I'm going to provide a couple examples so you can get a sense of, what are I statements and how does this sound in practice? So for the first one, you may say, I feel lonely when you do not call me back because it makes me feel like you don't want to talk to me. Or I feel hurt when you go so long without calling. I'm afraid you don't care. For the second one, I feel disrespected when we talk about finances because my needs and wants are not considered. Or I feel angry when we talk about finances. I'm worried you don't listen to my perspective. So when we are engaging in a conversation with someone else, we want to be sure that we are having active listening skills, showing them that we're listening to them and that we care about what they have to say, treating it as an active process rather than a passive one. So this means participating in conversation rather than acting as an audience. So put away distractions, such as cell phones, turning the television off, things like that. Using verbal and nonverbal communication. So verbal could sound like, that's interesting. That makes sense. I see. And these are things that you can offer in between the phrases that they are saying when there is the pauses in their speech. And then we also have nonverbal, which would be nodding in agreement, reacting to emotional content, so smiling when appropriate, and maintaining eye contact. We can also encourage sharing. Now, what this means is asking open-ended questions, such as, what are your thoughts about? What is it like to? Tell me more about. What do you like about? How did you feel when? How do you? And we can also use reflections. Now, reflections are a summary of what has been said that we are reflecting back to them. So if the speaker says, I have been having a hard time with my roommates lately. They never pick up after themselves and always leave the place a mess. I'm so overwhelmed trying to keep this place organized. The listener might say, sounds like you feel frustrated because you're cleaning up after yourself and other people. That sounds really tough. So if a speaker says, I've been having a hard time at work, there's way too much to do and I can't keep up. My boss is frustrated that everything isn't done. The listener would say, sounds like you feel overwhelmed from all the work that keeps being assigned to you. That sounds stressful. So we're using terminology like it sounds and that sounds because this is our interpretation of what the other person is saying. We could be wrong, and that's okay if we are. Typically, people will just correct you and say, no, I don't feel overwhelmed, I feel angry. And then we can strive to understand. So that means being present, paying attention to the body language, tone, and verbal content, and listening with an open mind. Now, we may never truly understand where someone else is coming from, and that's okay because we're all different with different perspectives, but we can do our best to get a viewpoint of what they are trying to share with us so that we can engage in that effective conversation. Now moving on to some conflict resolution tips. The 4 horsemen are damaging behaviors that escalate conflict and erode relationships. However, they do have antidotes to them. And antidotes are skills that replace each of the 4 horsemen, and these skills help resolve conflict and encourage positive feeling between partners. The first horseman we're going to talk about is criticism. Now that's dealing with problems through harsh, blaming, or hurtful expressions of judgment or disapproval. The focus is on perceived personal flaws, what is wrong with the person themselves, rather than things that can actually be changed. And this is often met with defensiveness. If someone is criticizing you, you may become defensive towards them. So the antidote is a gentle startup. And that's dealing with it in a calm and gentle way. The focus is on the problem, not the person. So one tip for this is you can save the conversation for an appropriate time, use warm body language and tone of voice. You can also use those I statements that we talked about earlier. Defensiveness is another 4 horsemen. And this is deflecting responsibility for your own mistakes and behaviors or refusing to accept feedback. This includes making excuses for behavior, shifting blame to your partner. And the antidote would be take responsibility. Own up to your behaviors without blaming others. Avoid taking that feedback personally and use feedback as an opportunity to improve, to learn and grow. Contempt is when you show anger, disgust, or hostility toward your partner. Put downs or insults are used. You're acting superior to your partner and using a mocking or sarcastic tone. Now, the antidote to this is sharing fondness and admiration. So showing kindness to your communication partner. Stonewalling is the last one, and this is emotionally withdrawing, shutting down, or going silent during important conversations. It's often a response to feeling overwhelmed, and it's used to avoid difficult discussions or problems, resulting in the problems going unresolved. So the antidote to this is to use self-soothing techniques. So use relaxation techniques to calm down, such as deep breathing. And there's one method that I'm going to share with you called 4-7-8. This is when you inhale through your nose for a count of 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7, and exhale through your mouth for 8 with a whooshing sound. Again, that's 4-7-8, and it's a breathing technique that can help calm down your parasympathetic nervous system. So soft startup sets a positive tone and helps resolve conflict. By starting a conversation calmly and respectfully, you're more likely to focus on the problem at hand rather than who's to blame for the situation. So once again, you want to save that conversation for a calm moment and make sure that there's no distractions or interruptions. Make sure that you have all your needs met, such as being hungry, tired, and that your communication partner also has those needs met so that you are relaxed and able to engage in that conversation. Use gentle body language and tone of voice. You guys are on the same team here, working together to try to solve the problem. Speak calmly without raising your voice and avoid hurtful body language, such as eye rolling, scowling, or mocking. Use those I statements we talked about. Describe the problem clearly, discussing only one problem at a time, and be specific. And lastly, be respectful in the conversation. So some fair fighting rules to engage in when you are having a discussion with someone is before you begin, you want to ask yourself, why do you feel upset? Is it really because they didn't do the dishes? Or is it because you feel like you're the one mostly responsible for the household chores and they're not helping you to complete that and you feel unwanted? What is the underlying reason for that you feeling upset? Discuss one issue at a time. Oftentimes we can find ourselves discussing, oh, you didn't help do the dishes like you said you were. And then we're discussing, I take care of the kids more than you do. And that becomes overwhelming in a conversation when we're adding so many issues on top of each other. Avoid degrading language. Express your feelings with words and take responsibility for them. Take turns talking. And if you need help with this, one thing you can do is set a timer. Each person gets a minute to talk and listen. No stonewalling. No yelling. Take a time out if things get too heated. If you need to say, hey, I got to take 15 to calm down, and then we will come back to this conversation, that's okay to do. And attempt to come to a compromise or an understanding. And those are the resources. So if you're curious and learning more about the topics discussed today, you can go to these links and find more information on them. All right, that concludes our lesson on communication skills, and I will see you all next time.